For years, global leaders have continued to reaffirm their commitment to go carbon neutral by 2050 in line with the 2015 Paris Agreement. But this no doubt will come with their implications on all dependent economies, especially Nigeria, whose major revenue comes from fossil fuel. Now, this development has led to international oil companies gradually divest from African hydrocarbon assets as capital expenditure is redirected towards alternative energy sources, which is causing major oil dealers in the continent to witness a decline in production across key assets. As Nigerian government faces revenue shortfalls among myriads of economic challenges going by the scrutiny encountered in the operations of the oil and gas industry. The big question is that what will be the implication of diversity of the IOCs are talking about energy transition on the country's oil and gas industry. And to provide answers to most of my questions, almost all my questions today, of course, I have the lead partner, energy and resource at Deloitte West Africa, Mr. Olumide Eson. Good afternoon, Mr. Eson. Mr. Eson, can you hear me? Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I can hear you.
Great.
Can you hear me?
Great. Yeah. A lot of talks around energy transition, and even yesterday, the minister at the NICE 2022 was quoted to have said that the oil and gas industry will face more scrutiny in the energy transition journey. Take us through what this means and how it comes to you.
Okay, thanks. So we should start by understanding what we mean by the phrase energy transition. I mean, it speaks to the fact that as human beings we recognize an existential threat in terms of global warming, and so this phrase energy transition essentially saying there is need to move from carbon intensive dirty fuel to cleaner sources of energy. And by dirty fuel, essentially looking at things like fossils, essentially oil and also charcoal and maybe to an extent gas, and that there is need to move to something that is more sustainable, that preserves the environment. Overall goal is to ensure that we stay within 1.5 degrees Celsius in terms of difference between the industrial revolution temperature and versus where we would be by year 2050. And so it's a concerted effort by everyone around the globe. As a matter of fact, there is a United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. And of course, Nigeria is party to that. And under that convention, each country has got what they call nationally determined contribution. In other words, what role would you play as a nation? And Nigeria has made a pledge, also just like other countries, that by 2030 we want to cut down CO2, which is essentially the biggest component of this whole greenhouse gas thing, by 20% unconditionally, and then maybe we can cut it down by 45% with certain conditions if we get help from outside, some funding and the rest of it. So it's a big issue. We restated our commitment last year, May, which was signed by the Minister of the Environment. You will also recall Nigeria was part of the Conference of Paris 26, which was held in Glasgow in November last year. All speaking towards the fact that we recognize we're on a dangerous path. Desertification is everywhere. The coral reef is going into extinction. We have more forceful and terrible typhoons these days. All speaks to the impact that the greenhouse gas emission is having on global warming. And this is just a concerted effort which affects everybody around the world, that we need to mitigate this in one way or another.
Now, do you think that this shift would, one way or the other, require more oil companies to account for the impact of activities on their environment? That's on one part. And what will be the direct effect on Nigeria? We depend solely on oil and gas at the moment.
Yes, I think there is there's an expectation that the oil companies will start to focus on spending capital on what we call sustainable energy, cleaner energy sources, and renewable, energy. So, and a lot of them are already, seizing that initiatives. Even those in Nigeria are doing that already, because it's a sign of commitment. That look, we can't sustain our world with this high level of CO2 emission. Just if you look at Nigeria, for example, if you look at the document that Nigeria shared as part of that UN, you know, CCC, the Convention on Climate Change, we have started that 60% of our CO2 green gas emission is coming from energy sector, and the energy sector, comprising both oil and gas production activities and also power generating activities. So there is no way anyone in the oil industry will escape not being part of energy transition. I think what needs to be done is the companies need to set aside part of the profits and capital to invest in sustainable energies, and they are, in fairness, all rowing towards that direction. Specifically for Nigeria, we depend a lot on 90% of our foreign proceeds come from oil. That's where we get our dollars from. We're not living in an isolated world, so we know at some point in time there will be a shift away from fossil, particularly oil. I think it's now accepted that gas will remain a transition fuel for some time to come. And of course, the minister and the speakers at the conference also alluded to that. And it's globally, as a matter of fact, in Europe, there is a push to classify gas and nuclear power as sustainable energy. And that classification is very important because with time, even funding will become difficult if you don't fall into this basket of either a sustainable, energy source or a renewable energy source. So for Nigeria, I think it's just, what do we need to do? We need to, again, spend more to quickly monetize what we have as reserves. We talk about this, 37 billion barrels of oil, that we have underground. We need to spend money to, get that resource out and use it to develop, modernize our economy, be prepared for the new world without crude oil in the future. But gas is going to remain around for a long time. Gas is crucial to us as a nation. First, it will power our energy system for some time to come. As you know, we are energy poor in Africa generally, and that energy poverty, affects Nigeria as well. So we still need access to energy. 70% of the people in this part of the world still don't have access to energy. So we need gas, certainly as a transition fuel in Nigeria. But also, we can continue to monetize our gas resources. We have over 200 TCF of gas right now in proven reserves. We need to monetize it. We need to, whether through the liquefied natural gas route or through some other routes, and use that money to modernize our economy and prepare for the adverse effects, of climate change. We are feeling it in Nigeria. I mean, that's partly why you have the harder farmer crisis, because, the desertification in the north. So there is struggle for the remaining, access to water and all of that. So the climate change is affecting everybody, the same way it's affecting, Southeast Asia with those terrible typhoons and all of them. It's also affecting us here in Nigeria. So we must proactively look forward to see what we can do about it. I mean, luckily for us, the PIA has provided some very good opportunities to leverage on our gas resources, both at the upstream, at the midstream, and at the downstream level. So I think we just need to get it right this time, because there is no escaping. We don't live in an isolated world. It is going to be expensive, as you know. Every new technology is expensive. So electric vehicles are still expensive. Hybrids are still expensive. Cost of solar panels are still expensive. But this, with technological advancement, this cost will be going down gradually. And so in a matter of time, we'll all be able to afford sustainable energy sources to power our homes, power our industries, and make room for economic growth in our country.
Let's stay a bit with gas. Any specific impact or implication of energy transition on the gas framework?
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting question to have, because there are two schools of thoughts. There are those, and which is where Nigeria belongs, that look, gas is here for a long time because it's cleaner, okay? It's less carbon intensive, unlike oil. So it's here for the long time. And of course, I hear the the argument in Europe as well that look, we should list it as a sustainable energy source. The hardcore who believe, look, we don't want anything that is fossil at all, no matter the content, no matter how little the carbon content is. But the reality is this: for us as a country, we can't do without the gas. We're still underpowered, as you know. The grid capacity right now is still, what we get supplied through the national grid is still less than 5,000 megawatts, where we should be about, 100 megawatts. So we need the gas to fire our power plants. And, so for us in Nigeria, the answer is clear. We will stick with gas for a long time to come. But at the same time, we're going to use gas to earn dollars, because a lot of countries also still need gas. And everybody agrees that gas is a transition fuel. North America, Europe, Asia, Africa, we all agree gas is a transition fuel. I mean, that transition could be anything from 10 to 20 to 30 years. But beyond that, there are those who believe, including us, that gas is actually a sustainable fuel, because we're saying the CO2 content is manageable. Of course, there are those who disagree and say, look, it's not sustainable because it's not a renewable source of energy. So Nigerian government has declared 2021 through to 30 as decade of gas. It's a decade where we want to focus on gas, monetize our gas resources, use it to modernize our economy, earn decent returns, earn decent dollars on it, use that dollars to make our economy robust. So for us, gas is a solution to a lot of problems. Now we're confronted with fuel crisis as we speak. The reality is we can move away. Prior to now, we're dealing with the issue of subsidy removal or no removal. Whereas, we can use auto gas, we can use compressed natural gas, and these are cleaner sources of fuel, and they're far cheaper than the landing cost of PMS. So, they just require some upfront investment, conversion kit, which on the average maybe $600 to $700 of conversion kit, and then your car can run on compressed natural gas, or if it's LPG, which is the auto gas that you want to use. So for us, gas is part of the equation of the future for Nigeria, and that is why we see so many mega projects going on in the country that has to do with gas. It's the AKK pipeline, to Kaduna, Kano. We're looking at the ANO gas in the east. LNG continues with the Strain 7. And so many, the PIA have provided some further leverage and opportunities and incentives to just encourage some more investment in the midstream, all in a bid to encourage us to optimize opportunity we have with our vast gas reserves in Nigeria.
Almost finally, now we're talking electric cars here, hybrids here, and all of this in line with the energy transition initiative. How will this affect transportation costs? Will it reduce it one way or the other if we move this route? And would we now need refineries at that point?
Yeah, so good question, and a good mix as well. So, the renewable source of energy right now is more expensive than the fossil, dirtier fuel. And for that reason, the economics remains a challenge. Electric vehicles, hybrids, they're all still more expensive than the conventional combustion engine. But in terms of how might we play this, I think it's a little bit of a challenge that we all have to deal with together as a people. In the case of Nigeria, when we start to convert our cars on the road, the millions of cars we have, it will cost some money to start to buy the conversion kit for us to even start to convert to gas. That may temporarily mean that it costs more in terms of transportation, but that is just in the short term. In the long term, that cost will level, and it will be an advantage to convert oil into gas. Now, talking about the refineries, now we've licensed so much, and I'm wondering what are we going to do with all these refineries in the future when everybody's running away from fossil fuel? Dangote at full capacity will be 650, NNPC has 445, and we have like 23 other refinery licenses that were recently issued. And the minister recently was talking about having some 3 by 18 more modular refineries in different Niger Delta states. The question is, by the time the world has moved on from crude oil, the question is, what would we be doing with most of the refined products that will be coming out of these refineries? Now, we will continue to need things like chemicals for the industry and all of that, but primarily the diesel, the PMS, what are we going to do with that? So I think Nigeria needs to strategically think, even as we continue to encourage investment in refineries, that what are we going to do in 10, 15 years when everybody has moved away? And remember, we are not an economic power. So literally, we are a taker. Whatever the world says, we do. We can't flex muscle that much. So if nobody manufactures, combustion engines again around the world, that means we can't use cars in Nigeria. We use whatever is manufactured in other areas of the world. So I think Nigeria government needs to really think deep, strategically see how the refineries fit into the long-term picture of what we do with our resources in Nigeria. In any case, refineries are not expensive, so it also takes time for them to recover, the capital cost. So that's why we must give deep thoughts into, having so many refineries when, people are running away from combustion, engine vehicles. Because if you have all the refineries and people are only able to import, electric vehicles into Nigeria, the question is, what are you going to do with the refined products, largely diesel, petrol that's coming from those refineries? So the Nigerian government needs to think through that.
So that's the way to go. I must thank you so much. Brilliant submission as usual from the lead partner, Energy and Resource, Deloitte West Africa, and Mr. Olumide Eson. Thank you so much, making us understand energy transition and of course what it entails. Do enjoy the rest of your day. Hope to see you soon.
Thanks, Tolu.